for listening in today. Thank you for spending your time with us. We're looking forward to a good conversation and want you to know right out of the gate how much we appreciate you supporting us and sharing your time with us. And we've heard from some of you about the podcast since we've started a year ago, and appreciate your encouragement. But we want you to know that our goal through all of this is hopefully to encourage you as you listen, and to remind you to keep looking up and know that God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. And of course, Carla and I enjoy talking each week also and having conversation together and catching up. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts, and she is Carla Moore. She's back in Colorado for the new quarter at Bear Valley. So how are things going there so far?
Cold.
Cold.
I think I told you that it was going to be 6 today, but it's not 6 today. It's 6 tomorrow. Today is like 35, so it's cold. But everything's good. We're in the middle of short course week. So Wayne Berger is teaching, which I was super excited to get to see him, because they've been up in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So he's here for the week teaching, and Mike Vestal is teaching the other class. So we are kind of in that week period before it really gets started in earnest for us, but we've enjoyed getting to see the students again, and most of the faculty, although some of the faculty is traveling. Denny's in Africa with Wayne Jones, and Michael's gone. And so it's been different with some of them gone, but anyway, it's all good.
So that's what you meant by most of the faculty. You said you've enjoyed getting back with most of the faculty. And I was thinking, so some of the faculty you weren't happy about getting back with.
Hell, no.
But you meant that they're not all there. So
right. Yeah, it's been a kind of a quiet week in the office because very few of them are there. But they'll be back. Some of them will be back this weekend. And I'm not sure when Denny comes back. He's in Cameroon, somewhere like that.
Which is such an exciting part of that work, and all the extension schools. How many are there now?
31.
All over the world. Right? I don't know. I can't keep up with it anymore. I was thinking like 50.
Well, it may be. Keith Kasarjan just sent out a report yesterday, and I if I tried to find it, I wouldn't be able to. But yeah, there was a report with all the number of the schools, and that's terrible that I can't remember. But more students than we've ever had before. And it is an exciting part of the work to know that all over the world, students are being taught the word of God. So it's a great work.
And how to go teach others. And there are usually quite a few conversions along with that, and students being evangelistic in their communities. And that was probably one of my favorite things about being a part of the Bear Valley work, is hearing, especially at the extension retreat, hearing about all the impact that those schools make around the world.
It's just a unique way of training, because rather than them having to come here and get all the paperwork and the visas and the effort that it would take to move to the States, and then the difficulty in going back sometimes. So this way, there are schools set up by Bear Valley all over the world. And then we go and train them, and it's not like it's full of our local staff there. There are staff trained there who teach, but some of the Denver staff will go, but not just Denver staff. There's coordinators all over the place. It's just a really unique way of teaching and training men to continue on sharing the gospel. So it's good.
Yeah. And for our listeners, worthy of your prayers and your support if you're interested in helping out a good work like that. I know they could always welcome some more support as they help grow those extension schools and the local work there in Denver.
You could go to wetrainpreachers.com, which looks like wet rain preachers. The first time I saw that, I thought, what is a wet rain preacher? But wetrainpreachers.com, and there's all kinds of details there. Yeah.
I was just listening to Ollie has a little playmate today. Christie's dog Dobby is here with us today, and they have so much fun together, but they're kind of playing around and chasing each other around and making these little noises. So
those noises aren't coming from you?
They're not me. I'm not saying all of them won't be me, but I don't know if the recording is going to pick it up or not, but if it does, that's what's going on around here today.
Yeah, whatever you say.
They're having a good time.
So how is Christie? I know she had her scan this morning, but
yes, and as of this recording, she said she should hear some results soon. So by the time this comes out on Monday, we'll know. But she's she's courageous, and she's trying to keep in good spirits, and of course trying to keep the focus on our great God and all the prayers that have been going up,
Right.
and very inspiring how she's been walking through this. So
Yeah. She's
anybody
had a
who's
long
dealt with
week on her.
cancer knows it can be frightening and sobering, and it's the C word.
Yeah. Well, I know the things that she shared on Facebook this past week while she's been in isolation I know she's been funny and
Yes.
courageous, but I know it has to have
Oh.
been hard to be all by yourself when you're thinking about what's going on in your body and not knowing. So she's been in my prayers, and we prayed for her in class last night and lots of other places. So
yeah, it's
praying for good news.
She's my baby sister, and I hate.
Yeah.
I hate it. Yeah. Hate the thought of it and wish I could take it from her. But so grateful for all the people that are praying and asking about her. So anyways, moving right along.
Well, what you been baking this week? Anything?
Baking? No.
But you sent me a really good recipe that I immediately went and bought the ingredients for last night. I braved the cold. And right after class was over, I thought, I don't know what the weather's going to do today. I'm going to make sure I have those ingredients. So I went and got them.
It'll be worth it.
But you need to pronounce the name of the soup.
I can't.
Come on, try it.
Yeah, well, now I don't even know what it is. Yucca something something. It's Greek. It's Greek to me.
I'm going to see if I can find it, and we'll try to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's Neil got me this book called Mediterranean Dish. It's Mediterranean cooking. And a couple of years ago, we ate Mediterranean style for about 8 weeks, or maybe even longer. I don't remember. And then, I actually think you guys came and stayed with us that time. It was that November. And we kind of got off track, and we never really picked it back up. And we've been saying we want to. It's your fault, Carla.
Sorry.
And it's so good to have a friend to blame things on.
Didn't you say something about this in our last podcast?
I probably did.
Well,
there goes that resolution.
Okay. Start over.
But this is a gorgeous book. And so I went to her website, and I was actually I haven't actually been shopping for Mediterranean type ingredients. And I went to her website looking for a recipe with things that I already have. And this particular recipe came up, and it's a meatball soup, but it's you form the meatballs with raw rice in it, and lots of herbs, grated onion, not chopped onion, and you simmer them in this broth that has olive oil, in it. And then when the meatballs are cooked, you kind of stir in this lemony, eggy slurry kind of a thing and then you put the lid on it and set it aside for 10 minutes. And when you open it up, it's just all beautiful and thickened. And when you serve it, you put freshly cracked pepper and a fresh squeeze of lemon, and, serve it with crusty bread. And I had the little dish of olive oil, with the seasonings in it. And it was so good. It was so good.
I have a lemon chicken soup that I love. It's a Greek lemon chicken, but this one that you sent me, Uvarlakia?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Uvarlakia, also spelled Geovarlakia, Greek meatball soup. So it's beef instead of chicken, but it looks delicious. I mean, it looks like cream, but it's lemon and egg. Did you use the egg yolks too, or just the egg whites?
Yes. So you whisk the egg whites really until they're nice and, fluffy and foamy. Then you add in the juice from 2 whole lemons and the egg yolks back to it. And then you whisk until she says, whisk vigorously until it gets, thick and creamy. Yeah. And then before you add it to the pot, you temper it with a little bit of the liquid from the pot, so it doesn't curdle. And then you just drizzle it in there and stir it. And it sounds so weird. It's just so different. Yeah. And but trust the process, because it was incredible. It was so good.
Well, it looks good. I don't have any. You said you use cilantro, and I didn't get any parsley, but I do have dill, and I think dill sounds good.
Yeah, I think her recipe called for parsley and mint, and a ton of it, like a ton of finely chopped herbs. But cilantro is all I had, so that's what I used. And
I don't know how to feel about mint in that, though. I like mint in tea. But mint is a big deal in Greek cooking. So
yeah, and Mediterranean cooking.
But usually with lamb, I think lamb and mint is what I think of. I like it, but I don't know. Maybe some other day I'll try it.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you
You go
go.
ahead. I've been talking, so you talk.
Well, finish your thought because this is a new thing.
Mine is too. So your turn.
Okay. I just wanted to mention an upcoming trip that we're going to do. We had 2 trips. The first one planned for March was going to be Israel with Bear Valley. And that one we had to cancel, but we've changed it into a trip to Turkey and Greece. And that's going well. But we also had another one set for end of May, beginning of June with polishing the pulpit. And we've been working with Luke Griffin. Alan Webster's going to go, and I think some of his kids and several from House to House, Heart to Heart. And, we've been monitoring as much as we can the situation in Israel, because it was supposed to be Rome and Israel, and had to finally make the decision to cancel that trip. But we've also replaced it with a trip to Rome and to Greece. So we were getting close to being full on that trip in May and June. But understandably, some people, what they wanted to do was Israel, and then we're not going to be able to do that. So we've got space now. Okay. If people are interested in, it's not going to be Israel, but it'll be Greece and Rome. And I can't remember all of the details. There's, 2 trips in my head, and I can't remember which is which sometimes. But if anybody out there is listening and is interested, you can go look on our website. It's biblepassages.net, and then pull down the menu that says current trips. And then you can see what the details of where we'll go. And it's 5 days in Rome, which I enjoy Rome especially. And it's going to be kind of like what we did back in October, but a little bit slower pace. Like what we did in October was boom, 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 boom all day long. And this is, instead of doing 5 things a day, we'll do like 3 things a day and spread them out a little bit more. And I think there's a free day in there somewhere, or free afternoon. And the same in Greece, lots of different places in Greece, and ending in Athens, several days. I want to say 4 nights in Athens and a free day there. So anyway, we would love to have y'all join. I wish y'all could go with us again, but if anyone's interested, go check out our website or contact me, and I'll send you the information. So we'd love to have you.
There is something special about Israel that can't be replaced, but Greece and Rome play such a huge part also in what we read in our Bible, especially the New Testament. And it's still just as exciting to be able to go back and read those things having been there. And you just read it all through a little bit different lens, know, and so it's definitely worth it. It's definitely valuable and exciting and beautiful. Let's not shy away from that.
Yeah.
And good food.
Yeah.
All good reasons.
A lot of places that we're going that I haven't been before. So I'm excited about that. Except that I don't know where the bathrooms are. I always say that's part of my job on these trips.
Right.
I know where the bathrooms are, but not this time. So we'll all be learning. There's going to be more time on the bus because we'll be driving. I think on this trip coming up in March, we're flying to Istanbul and then doing some driving down the coastline and then flying to somewhere and then ending up in Greece. I can't remember, but I'm excited about it. And
well, it sounds good.
Yeah.
I know it'll fill back up. Very exciting.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes I wonder, after last March trip to Israel, John and I left like April the 6th and didn't think anything of, think about walking back down that ramp that we walked down to get back to the airplane, and just wondering if that's the last time we'll see it. And I don't think so. I mean, I think they'll get this straightened out, and it's not just another hiccup. It's much bigger than that. But I just pray for Israel, because you think about, if people are in charge of the antiquities in Israel who really want nothing to do with Israel's history and the Jews' history, will all of those things be destroyed? And that's our history. So it just concerns me that we pray for Israel and for peace there, and not just for the people of Israel, of Gaza, of anywhere, but for the antiquities and the proof of, and God's going to take care of that. I know I shouldn't worry too much about that, but I do think about it.
Well, I can't imagine anybody not appreciating that and recognizing its value and its worth. But we know that there are people out there who don't, and in fact are very antagonistic toward it. So you're right.
Well, you think about the difference in how Jericho looks.
Yeah.
Because that's not under Jewish authority, Israeli authority. And so it's not covered, it's not taken care of. And so it's deteriorating. So I just don't want that to happen in other places too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, sorry. I'm glad you brought that up. That'll be fun. I look forward to seeing who ends up on that trip with you. I'm always curious about those kind of details.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be fun.
Who you hanging out with, Carla?
Yeah, there's going to be we do have some friends going on the March trip. So it'll be good.
Good. Yeah. Good. Well, mine's not glamorous or anything. I was just going to share something.
Mine's not glamorous either.
Last Thursday, the kids all came over and cooked for me. So they did that because I believe it was Gary's idea. He sent a message out to Neil and the rest of everybody else without me in it, and said they wanted to do something to keep my mind off of my sister and, you know, what she's facing and going through and all that kind of stuff. So and sweet. It was the sweetest thing. And so they came over and they cooked this big, it was like a taco meal with some kind of beef steak, cut of beef steak that they seasoned and cooked up. But they were in the kitchen chopping and cooking, and Emily was rolling out tortillas and, you know, just all the chat. And I'm just sitting there holding one of the babies and just soaking it all in, you know, that the kids just cared enough to take time out of their day and come spend time with me. And Gary said, we're just going to focus on games. We're not going to talk about religious things. And he said that because not too long ago, we sat at the table with all of them to start a game. And all the guys got caught up in this debate or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we're just kind of listening. And it went on for so long that we never played a game. Oh. And so now they kind of joke about it, you know, like religious topics banned from the game table. But
yeah, that's a good practice anyway.
But Gary was saying we're just going to focus on playing games and having fun together. And it was so sweet.
It was very thoughtful. There's just something about having your whole family under one roof and especially when they're doing something sweet like that for you, knowing what you need and paying attention to that. That's really sweet.
Yeah, we had everybody but Carl. Carl ended up coming down with something and he had a fever and wasn't feeling good. So we missed him, but it was still very sweet and ate really good food and
good for them.
Touched my heart. So I wanted to share that.
Good. Well, we got to, we left Dripping Springs last Friday, I believe. But we the weekend before we went to Katy to see Jordan and his family. And then we came home. I got to spend a little bit of time with Mom, and then I got to take care of Olivia on Wednesday, I want to say. Packed on Thursday. Then Friday we drove. Instead of going straight to Denver, we bypassed and went to Fort Worth to see Jake and Liz and Turner and Darcy. So we got to spend the night there. It was just a quick trip. I mean, we got there noonish and then left super early the next morning, but got to see the new baby and Turner. It was so sweet. I'm not going to do the grandmother thing too much, but one thing, she was asleep when we got there. And I couldn't wait for her to wake up. And when finally she did, Alyssa went up to get her and I could hear her coming down the stairs. And so I poked my head around the corner and she saw me and she went, "You came back." Aww. And I wanted to cry. It was so sweet. She was so excited to see us because they hadn't told her we were coming because they knew they'd have to answer a million questions. But there's just nothing like it.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yep. Yep. Anything else going on there?
I do have a homesteady thing I can share with you, kind of homesteady. Okay. I made a personalized fragrance for Neil.
Really? How did you do that?
Well, first of all, I created this really long questionnaire, and I wanted to create something that felt like him, the things that he enjoys or thinks about or are important to him. And, I know he loves the mountains and he loves outdoors and, he loves old books and, those kinds of scents and places like that. But I wanted to really expand it. And then I was also thinking about physically, how he's wired. Some people run hot and some people run cold. So I wanted what I put into it to counter he tends to run hot. So I wanted to have a cooling fragrance in there.
Okay.
Stuff. So anyway, I did this long questionnaire and it was so fun because obviously I feel like I know him better than anybody else, but it was still kind of a learning experience to ask him these questions and have him give me some answers and things like that. And so then, and I focused on, where he grew up, and the sense that place is known for. And so what I did is that for every single question I went through, I came up with various scents that would represent that. And then I took all of those at the end and see if any of them crossed over, like which ones showed up the most, and picked 3, 4, 5 of those. And then, are any of them a really strong base note, middle note, top note, that kind of thing. And do they work well together and all that kind of stuff. So we already purchased some perfumer's alcohol for it. And I used my therapeutic grade essential oils, but it was so much fun. And now I look forward to, like, when the garden's getting going, I'll be able to make some scents out of those types of things. And now I want to ask the girls, in my family, can I design a fragrance for you? But Neil loves it. It smells so good and he loves it. And I said, I want it to be something like you just feel like you're putting on your favorite t-shirt, like it just makes you feel good and feels like your authentic self is it's a trendy thing to say. So
so is there, like you said, mountain, so is it like a pine type scent? And then trying to think what a Georgia bulldog would smell like.
No dog smell in this one.
And tennis shoes.
Yeah, well, another scent that he likes is leather, which I don't have anything like that. I don't even know. I probably could create a tincture with leather. I know you can with like old book pages, and you can create your own scents out of things like that. But vanilla is sometimes used in the process to represent leather as a base note. So I put a little of that in there to kind of represent that. But, I was kind of like mad scientist mixing things together to see if it smells good. And you kind of have to let it sit for days and see how it works together. And so I was really nervous, but it turned out really good. And I love the way it smells on him. I'm very excited that it actually worked. And so now I'm kind of like
a new side hustle.
I know. Now I'm like, can I do you? Can I do you? Can I ask you some questions? Can I?
It'll make you smell good.
Create a fragrance for you. A personalized fragrance. Yeah.
I would have never thought to do that. Well, good for you. I have to smell it from afar.
Hopefully it's not that strong.
Yeah. A little too much. When somebody sits down in front of you on an airplane or wherever, and
in the grocery store.
Oh man, well, on an airplane is worse because you're like stuck by it for an hour and a half or however long the flight is
in that tight space.
Yeah, that's one of those. There are some things that I think people just ought to know. It's common sense to me, like to not. I mean, even if you are going to wear some kind of scent when you go and you're going to be in a tight space with other people, don't put quite so much on. And things like, I'll get myself into trouble here, but like in the grocery store, when you're pushing your cart, keep it with you instead of don't set it off right here and then take up the other side of the aisle. I always want to tell people, hey, excuse me, but you have the whole aisle is taken by your cart on one side and you standing on the other. Anyway, that's probably a side note.
Public service announcements from Carla today on Looking Up.
And I know I've done it before because I catch myself, and I'm annoyed by it. Then sometime I might park the cart because for whatever reason, I'm getting mad at people for doing the same thing that I'm doing.
I remember feeling sheepish one time sitting in a class with you because, we're sitting on that back row in Michael Height's class.
He always laughs about that.
You were always getting us in trouble. But
whatever.
But one of the students turned around me and said, somebody smells like candy. And I didn't have perfume on, but it was my lotion, which was some kind of, I forget what it was called now at the time, but it was some kind of Bath and Body Works lotion. But I remember like my cheeks getting hot because I was thinking, he can smell my lotion from 2 rows up. That's pretty strong. Sorry.
Well, it goes away pretty quickly. So I wouldn't feel bad about that. I know Michael always, whenever he brings that up, because you would be studying for John's geography class, and he'd say, Kathy's back there
Yeah.
going, looking at a map, pulling it out while he's talking about teaching methods or whatever.
That's because all of our resources for John's class were like 6 feet long.
Yeah, maps, definitely.
Pull out, unfold. And we had to memorize everything on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not an easy class. It's a good class, but not
it's
easy.
It's a very good class. Now I want to go back and take it again when I don't have to do it for credit.
Yeah, I've never taken it for credit. I've sat in on it a couple of times, but not for credit. I'm too chicken to do it for credit.
Yeah,
I mean, if your husband's your teacher, what if you get a bad grade? Is he going to like walk in the door and scold me about it?
I've sat in on Neil's classes for credit. And then I'm mad at him because I'm like, why are you giving us all this busy work?
Yeah, maybe not the wisest idea, huh?
Right. All right. Is there anything else you want to share before we zoom into our topic?
No, let's go.
All right. So today we're going to have a conversation on finding balance. And this is really a broad topic. If you think about it, it could cover multiple things. And I thought it'd be a good timing to think about it, you know, kind of on the heels of what we talked about last week. Change is hard. You know, we're thinking about the new year and fresh starts.
I'm sorry. I can hear Dottie and Ollie in there.
I can't too. I'm sorry.
It's either your stomach growling really loud,
like old men grunting. They are fighting. They're fighting over the dog bed, and Dobby is in it, and Ollie is pouncing on him, and they're both kind of growling. So
yeah. So it's not your stomach.
This is not a professional studio. In case we haven't mentioned that before.
Okay, sorry I interrupted you. Continue.
Yeah, sorry. What was I saying? Oh, but we talked about change can be hard and some obstacles to that. Well, sometimes when we're looking at our lives and contemplating how things are going, it's easy for things to get out of balance, especially when it comes to how we use our time and how we spend our time. And in thinking about this topic, I was kind of thinking, we really can take this to just this pendulum swing of extremes of there's the workaholic, always going, always on the run, always busy, 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 busy. And then as is kind of trendy right now, slow living. And that means different things to different people. But, people are talking about embracing a slower pace, appreciating the simple things of life, whatever that means to you. But sometimes we kind of carry that to the extreme. Now I'm going to say no to everything. And for the Christian, I think this just can be challenging because we want to make the most of our time for God. We want to, some people pray, use us up in your service. And that looks like busy hands and feet and taking care of people. And because we read about, Jesus is saying, when you fed the hungry and gave something to drink to the thirsty and visited the sick, you did those for me. It involves doing things. So for the Christian, I think sometimes it can be difficult to see a good balance and find that good balance, and without feeling like feeling guilty. If an opportunity comes up, but you really cannot add one more thing to your week, or taking it to the extreme. Well, I've just worked myself to the bone and I'm exhausted and I, don't have time for this, and this. And so now I'm just going to say no to everything.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just kind of have a conversation about how we can find balance and what that looks like. I was thinking about last Saturday, we had Jude all day while Janelle was at work. And, you just forget how much work that is, having an infant all day long, and your whole life revolves around feeding, burping, changing diapers, putting down for a nap, feeding, burping, changing, and I just really don't get much done beyond that. And of course, I love that. But I was thinking about this conversation is applicable to everybody, but it looks different for everybody too, because every phase of life is different. You and I, our challenges and our commitments and busyness and what's important and what's worthy, of taking our time and filling our days with might look different than those young moms. Jude's mom, Rich's mom. We had ladies Bible class here Tuesday night, and all these young moms were over here sharing stories and cracking each other up with the antics of their small children who, take up a lot of time, and their phase is different. But I bet they still have to figure out and try to find balance in all of that. And maybe sometimes it's frustrating and they feel like they're missing out on some things or trying to do it all, or it's just something that no matter, I think, where you are, what phase you're in, it's worthy of contemplation and prayer and a little bit of a heart check of, am I keeping my mind on things above? Am I making those small daily choices? Those small daily choices of each and every day is what is building our life and creating our life. So that's why I wanted to have a conversation about that today.
Yeah. Well, and you and I both in ministry, with all of the things that go on daily in ministry, and all of them are good. Mm-hmm. And so how do you decide? How do you say no? This is a conversation John and I have had often, and I've probably said it on here at some point. How do you get mad at John's boss when his boss is God? When I feel like, John's overwhelmed with things that he needs to do. And me too, now that I've reached that stage when I'm finished raising children, but now I'm involved in a lot of things in ministry, and I don't, I don't feel like I don't get angry with God in that sense, but I used to have some resentment about ministry and the amount of time that it took, because there's never a cutoff point. There's always something that somebody wants or needs, and they're all good things. So how do you decide when it's okay to say no, or you need to do it? There's that saying, it's always right to do right. It's always wrong to do wrong. It's never wrong to do right. It's never right to do wrong. Mm-hmm. But that it's always right to do right is where I get stuck sometimes, because if it's a good thing and I can, then why would I say, no, I can't do that? Mm-hmm. But there's a mental exhaustion sometimes and a emotional exhaustion. But even that, am I being a baby if I'm really tired and don't? It's just I don't know. You and I have had these conversations, and we don't know what's reasonable and what's unreasonable, and it's a difficult thing. And plus, we live partially on support. People support us financially to be able to do what we do, and so I feel, and I know John feels it even more than I do, accountable for that money that comes into us. Are we doing enough? And sometimes it feels a little bit like for lack of a better term, a rat race, just feeling like we have to produce and make sure that everybody knows that we're busy. And I know people know we're busy, but does busy equal productive? Does busy equal successful to God? And I think that's kind of where, as I understand, that's where you were going with this. And how do we decide? How do we discern between the proper amount of time spent doing this or that? And when is it okay to say no? And when do we need to say yes? And when am I being a baby? That's the main thing for me. When am I being a baby?
Right. And that's exactly where I wanted to go with this conversation, because, Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. And we all must be about our Father's business. But when does it become just busyness? And does busyness always glorify God? So, and how do you develop that wisdom and discernment to be able to tell the difference? That's really what I want to talk about, because, again, I know we all feel that same sense of urgency. Life is brief. We're here for a little while, and our life just vanishes away. We have multiple scriptures in the Bible that tell us that, and that we want to make the most of our time. We understand that concept, and we do want to serve and look for those opportunities. So finding balance sometimes can feel difficult, because sometimes it feels like people are making those decisions for us sometimes. And for listeners, maybe you find yourself in that situation where some of those decisions have been taken out of your hands just because of your phase of life that you're in right now. Caring for aging parents, you've made the choice to do that, but it's automatically changes the rest of your schedule in a way that you really don't have much control over, and that can be difficult. And but just from the day to day, how do you know that here's how I'm filling my time, here's what my schedule looks like when I look back over my week and see everything that I did this week, because we know we're all busy. Was it the best decisions? Did it make the most impact for the kingdom? Even if they were all good things, were they the best things for my family, for the people that God's put in my life? That's kind of what I wanted to talk about. How do you get that kind of clarity? So I kind of thought that I really just have a couple of questions and kind of thought we would just discuss them. And I know you've been thinking about this too, Carla, and if there was a different approach or something that you want to say, obviously, feel free, jump in. But the first one was, when do we go from serving to being distracted? And of course, I'm thinking about Martha. And did I even write down that text? And Luke,
it's in the Gospels.
Luke something. Just by way of a reminder, Jesus comes into their home, and Martha is thinking about all the things that she needs to do as hostess, and she's busy and much preparation, depending on what version you're reading. And she gets aggravated with Mary because Mary's in there sitting at Jesus's feet. And she finally says something to Jesus, and she says to him, Lord, do you not care? Tell my sister to get in here and help me. And so we remember what Jesus replied to her, Martha, Martha. He says her name, Martha, Martha. And how do you hear that in your head? Is he disappointed? Is he aggravated? Or is he compassionate when he says,
I think all of the above. The fact that he repeated it, though, it's like she was pretty audacious in what she said. Let me say this real quick. If you're quieter, I don't know if you need to scoot your computer closer to you, but it's okay. A lot. You got quieter. Okay.
Is this better?
Continue. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. So he says, Martha, Martha. And then he says that you are worried and distracted about many things. And Martha has chosen that good part, that one needful thing. I think the NIV calls it that one needful thing, and it shall not be taken away from her. Well, you can talk to a group of women, and we all feel so defensive of Martha because we're like, well, somebody's got to cook the food. Somebody's got to get things ready. And, she's hosting Jesus.
Yeah.
So when did she cross the line? And we can't get around the fact that Jesus says that she did. And she did not make the best choice in the moment. And so when I think about that occasion and try to think, she's a good person, she's doing good things, she's doing wonderful things, she's doing actually what was expected of her in that moment. She's living up to her expectations. But first of all, she got to the point where she was aggravated with her own sister for not helping her. And, she starts grumbling about it, we can assume, in her mind, because she's just sitting over there. And then she even starts thinking wrongly about Jesus. She says to him, Lord, do you not care? So it kind of seems like she crossed the line when she forgot her motivation for what she was doing. And she was no longer, instead of serving and being happy that her service was allowing her sister to sit at the feet of Jesus, she actually wanted to pull her sister away from Jesus. And I think that's when she crossed the line.
Yeah. Well, the words that jump out to me was that she was anxious and troubled. I'm looking at it. It's in this particular place, Luke 10. He said, you're worried in the New American Standard, you are worried and bothered about so many things. So to me, it was her attitude about what she was doing rather than the fact that she was doing a good thing. And they did need to be fed. They did need to be taken care of. And there was probably a lot of people with them. And so she was, like we've all said, she was doing a good thing, but she had a stinky attitude, like you said, about her sister. And man, I've been there. Like you take on that air of injury, like, I'm doing this all by myself. And why can't she help me? Why does she get to do that? And I have to do this. I would really rather be doing that, but somebody's got to do this. And so just the fact that he says, you're bothered and you're worried. And then some other translations, anxious, and we're not to be anxious about things. So probably would be, a good thing to analyze our attitude in the middle of these things that we're distracted by. And if we're not doing them for the right reasons, or if we can't shake ourselves and do them with a better attitude, that's the problem.
Yeah, I heard a phrase not too long ago, and I wish I could remember where I heard it, but it was sort of along that lines of what you're talking about with the attitude and motivation when it comes to the things that we're choosing to do that involve good works, acts of service. And it said, do your good works shine the light on Jesus? Mm-hmm. And to me that covers everything. Because if the whole point is for an attaboy,
yeah,
or a little bit of praise or acknowledgement, if I'm involved in something and it doesn't get acknowledged, it doesn't get mentioned from the pulpit or put in the bulletin or, whatever, and then it frustrates me or aggravates me. I did all of this and nobody ever said, does it shine the light on Jesus, or is it for my own attaboy? Does it shine the light on Jesus in that it gives other people opportunity to be close to him, like the occasion with Martha and Mary? Or does it draw attention to myself? I'm so busy. Look how busy I am, that kind of thing. So in this particular situation, if what she was thinking about was gratitude that she had, first of all, he was in her home, Jesus was teaching. But because, as you say, she ended up with an attitude problem, she interrupted his teaching. She stopped. What could be more important than that?
Yeah. And audacious. I mean, yes. The nerve.
Here he is teaching in her home. She interrupts him to gripe about her sister. Stop talking about whatever you're talking about, Lord, and make her help me. And that's what I'm talking about. Here in her desire to have everything just so or do whatever, her balance was skewed. Her priorities were skewed. She forgot why she was doing what she was doing. She forgot the most important thing. And so that's why I wanted that to be the first question, is how do we know? How do we keep that level of humility and heavenly vision, to determine somehow in all of this, I feel like I've crossed the line. And I'm not making the best choices, or I've forgotten the big picture and I've gotten distracted by the busyness and the details and the things like that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to think what would a better choice have been in that whole situation, knowing that they did need to be fed and that there were chores that needed to be done. What would it have been? And I'm always cautious to say, how should this have been, and it's an account that took place in the Bible. It's there for us to learn from. But wouldn't it have been better for her to sit quietly and listen and know that those people will be fed eventually? Or would it have been better for her to just continue to do what she needed to do in the background and let Mary sit? And, what would have been a better choice for her to make?
Yeah, I've thought about that too, because when I went back and reread it, I thought, was he faulting her for what she was doing? And I don't know. He says, that one thing, you're worried and distracted or troubled, however your version reads, about many things. Mary has chosen the one needful thing, and it shall not be taken away from her. It kind of makes it sound like Mary made the better choice.
Yeah.
But, perhaps it's that Martha could have kept serving in those needful, necessary ways and trusted that she would have had her turn to sit at the feet of Jesus. And now this is Mary's turn, or kept an ear out to listen while she's quietly doing those things. I don't know. But we do know that she got distracted. She crossed the line. She lost sight of the big picture and what was really happening in that moment, and didn't make the best choice.
the account that you read of them later when Lazarus dies and Jesus goes to them. Well, Martha's the one that goes out to meet him, and Mary stayed at the house. And, you almost feel like that this is kind of her personality, is to be a little bit outspoken, and, well, not a little bit, but a lot outspoken. And who knows exactly how she said it in that account with when Lazarus died. She said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, because you can say it in different ways, accusatory or just grieving, knowing, my trust and my faith in you is so complete that I know he wouldn't have died if you were here. But, it also talks about how Jesus loved her. And so that, to me, I love that too, because I know that faults and all, Jesus loved her. And that applies to me as well, that even when I make dumb choices and don't have the best attitude about things, that he still loves me. And he just might shake his head at me. But like you said, how did he say that? Was he chiding her, or was he teaching her? And knowing his compassion, I think he was gently teaching her. And it was a correction, of course, but it was instruction rather than shaking his finger. To me, that's what I think anyway.
Oh, I think you're right. And I think when you read that text, who do you identify with? And how many women do you know read that text and don't identify with Martha?
Right.
Because we've all been there. And we know that kind of stress that can come with preparation or obligations or expectations and fulfilling our roles, and being frustrated, as you said, with other people when we feel like at times we're the ones doing all the work and they just get out there and get to do the fun stuff. Yeah. We get a stinking attitude about it, and
stinking thinking, as you say.
Stinking thinking, yeah. Who do we identify with when we read that text? And it's such a teaching moment for us. And again, not that what Martha was doing was wrong. She just lost sight of it. She lost sight of the big picture and what was most important in the moment. And you've heard people say sometimes you have to say no to something good to say yes to something better. And in this case, you can just see that little seed that lodged itself in her heart of resentment and bitterness toward her sister. She wasn't finding joy in her service in the moment. She was too busy thinking that her sister's in there being lazy. And it just messed things up, messed her thinking. And so maybe that's where we start, is with that prayerful, humble acknowledgement that sometimes what seems so real and right in the moment is just not. And we need to step back and ask God to help us see the big picture instead of all those little tiny minute details in the day-to-day that we feel responsible for.
Something you just said jumped out at me when you said, if you can't find joy in your service. And maybe that's where, again, this could be just thinking out loud. Sometimes we have so much on our plate that there's no joy. And is that my fault for taking on too much? Is it my fault for having an improper attitude about things? I think it could be a lot of different ways of looking at that, but we should be able to find joy in service, and not because of, like you said, the pat on the back, but because we know we're doing something that's going to help someone else. And that's a process, is being able to go through it, in my earlier years, and make mistakes and not do things for the right reasons. But God is gracious and allows you time to learn, but also getting to the point where you don't need that pat on the back anymore, because you know that the reason you're doing it is for God, and having that complete confidence that he sees it, he knows why I did it and what I did. And it's always fun to see later that God finds ways, I think, to reward you, even if it's maybe if someone says something publicly about what you did, or someone does something for you because they know that you've expended energy doing something for someone else. Or you might not find that feeling of reward now, but it's something that will come later, that God's going to take care of this. No matter what I do, if I do things for the right reason for him, then he knows, he sees.
Yeah. And you're not talking about things being fun. Like,
right.
if it's not fun to me, obviously I'm not meant to serve in that area, because there are a lot of things that aren't fun. You know, that's not what you're talking about. I think about, as we mentioned, the moms in the trenches, you know, changing poopy diapers just really isn't that fun. And a baby puking up all over you in the middle of the night. It, you know, isn't that fun? And some things that we do, they're acts of service for people in need. It can be unpleasant, but there's joy in the service, and knowing that you're giving and that you're God's hands and feet, and that's why moms, you know, muck it out day after day and clean up things that nobody else would touch, and they do it without recognition a lot of times, or acknowledgement, or, you know, think of those small acts of service that are done behind the scenes that nobody ever knows about. And it's
joy is so different than happy and fun.
Yes. Yeah.
And we recognize that.
I know for myself, I've been there, where something that started out as good, because of my own attitude, ended up being a temptation, you know, like a skewed, a problem. Or I think about when somebody starts out with, this is probably not a good example, but when somebody starts out with like a blog or, you know, a YouTube channel or whatever, and originally their intention is they want to teach something. They have something to say and they want to teach something, or they want to share something good with the world, and they want to put out this thing that's going to lift others up or encourage people or whatever it might be. And then they get hung up on those hits, likes, visits, shares, notifications, you know, then they get almost addicted to that dopamine hit of that, and always checking it. And if your numbers are down, or nobody says anything or shares it or whatever, and then their whole day is ruined. And well, because they've forgotten why they did that in the first place. It had nothing to do with you and people acknowledging you, and it had to do with, you had something to say and you wanted to share it or teach it or encourage or whatever it was. And, you know, my sister, a few years ago, she spoke at the Bear Valley Lectureship. She shared the very best illustration, and you know, something along these lines. I don't even remember what her lesson was about, but I will not forget her illustration. She might kill me for sharing it, because maybe she still shares this illustration in lesson. So sorry in advance, Chris. But she was talking about how she had a Fitbit, and, you know, she was in one of those groups where you're competing with other people to get the most steps. And she's very competitive, in case you don't know that about her.
Something in y'all's blood.
She had either, you know, gone to the mall or gone to the track or something. It was just booking it, just, you know, walk, getting all these steps in, and just, you know, just going at it. And something happened. I don't remember now. She actually realized that she didn't wear her Fitbit, or she forgot to, or it stopped working. Something happened to where she did not get credit for a single step. And she was talking about the fact that she was so frustrated. And in her mind, you know, she's thinking, I did all that for nothing.
And she still got the steps.
And she completely forgot that the reason she got that Fitbit in the first place was so she'd be more active. So here she spends the whole day being active, but then because it wasn't acknowledged or recorded, or, you know, she did it all for nothing, because she completely forgot why she was doing it in the first place. And I love that illustration, because first of all, I totally get it.
Been there, done that.
I say as I'm wearing a little fitness tracker here. But, you know, that is so easy. It's so easy for things like that to happen. You start out with good intentions, and I want to do these things, and I want to serve, and then boy, can Satan get in there into our hearts and plant these little seeds of, you know, praise, acknowledgement, bitterness, distraction, whatever it might be. And the next thing you know, we've completely lost our sense of balance or purpose and what it was supposed to be all about in the first place.
He uses every stinking thing he can against us. It makes me so mad. Even good things like that. Yeah. Well, it's funny. My watch tracks steps and things too. And when I get on the lawnmower, the riding lawnmower at home, I
You
think
get
the
credit for
vibration,
that?
the vibration of the mower, and I look at my watch at the end of the day and I have like 22,000 steps. I'm like, yes.
Oh, nice.
But that's dumb too, because I didn't do it. And so I'm
Yeah.
excited about something that I didn't do. And I guess that can play into this whole topic too.
Oh man. Yeah,
Well,
I don't think mine's done that yet. I'm
yeah,
gonna
well, you can
try it and
try it.
see.
Go get
Yeah.
on the lawnmower. Yeah. Or put it on Neil when he's running on the treadmill. Let him do it for you. Well, this is just it's just a difficult topic because there's so much good that can be done and we want to be involved in it. And yet there are times when I know we feel overwhelmed. And so maybe how do we know what the point is, where do we can say no, or when we can say later, or and I don't know. I'm still working on that. And I know you are too. And so that's why we're having this discussion. But at
Yeah.
what point is it okay to say no without feeling guilty? And maybe we just can't. Maybe there's no way of saying no without feeling guilty.
Yeah, I don't know about that part, but I feel like it's a good segue into the second question because the
Okay.
first one had to do with sort of attitude and when our service ends up becoming distraction. Well, the second question was, when does busy become too busy?
Mm-hmm.
And as we mentioned, serving God involves action, and we do want to look back over our life and see a life well spent in service to Him, and that could be a whole nother topic of squandering time, wasting
Mm-hmm.
time, procrastination, laziness, all those things. But it seems like for the most part, with most people that we talk to, it's the other end of the extreme that we have trouble with, where it's the calendar just fills up, and if you don't fill it up, other people will do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
It just, you might think you have a light week ahead of you, and by the end of Monday, you've got something down every day.
Yeah.
That's how we operate. That's our society, and that's how we live. And sometimes it seems like a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
you know uh
To be
I'm
busy.
so busy and I've got
Yeah.
this and this going on. And but when does it become too busy, and when does
Mm-hmm.
it just become busyness in such a way that it doesn't glorify God? So that's the second question. And I was kind of thinking how some little hints might be, if you're always giving the same answer when people say, how's your week been? Busy.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? Oh, tired. I'm exhausted. I'm
Yeah.
beat. Is that what you find yourself, or even if you don't say it, are you feeling it, when people come talk to you, or is that what they're hearing from you and that's what they expect from you? That you're busy, you're tired, you're always, cramming everything into your
Mm-hmm.
schedule. It maybe that's a little hint that if people start saying things to you like, I know you're busy, but
Mm-hmm.
I know you got a lot going on, but if you could spare a little time, can we talk about, if people feel the need to preface anything they say to you, a request, they need something from you or they want time with you, but they feel the need to preface that with, I know you're crazy busy. I know you got a lot going on. Well, why do they know that? You
Yeah.
know, do you always seem like you're on the way somewhere else because you're busy, busy, busy? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's a little sign that you've gotten too busy. If you're too busy for the people that God has put right in your life, in your path, in front of your face, maybe you're too busy.
When you sent me this topic, it was ironic, I think, because we had just, you sent it to me the other evening, and we had just had a conversation with Colton and Katie Balance and about a book that he's been reading. And I've seen it in other places. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. And it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And the subtopic, How to Stay Emotionally Healthy and Spiritually Alive in the Chaos of the Modern World by John Mark Comer. I don't know if that's exactly how you say his name, but Katie's the one that told me about it first, although I had seen him quoted on Facebook a couple of times and heard other people talk about it. But she said that they had taken the last 2 Saturdays, and she called it had a Sabbath. And I've heard other people doing this, and I think there's probably some people that might kind of like be alarmed about using that religious term. But if you, because God does not expect us, he doesn't expect us to practice the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. But rest, he does want us to rest. And so if someone said, I'm taking this Saturday to rest, nobody would raise their eyebrows about that at all. But I picked up the book and I've gotten, I don't know, 20% into it, and it's good. There's some really good stuff in there. One of the things that I actually took a screenshot of to share because I thought it was so true, and what you're talking about right now, he says, how do you know when you're too busy and when it's time to slow down a little bit? Because he talks about, like you're saying, it's like a badge of honor to be busy. And years ago, it used to be you knew the people that were more wealthy and more leisure because they were not busy. It showed pictures of them sitting next to the pool sipping a cool drink. And now someone that's portrayed as wealthy or whatever is shown in a corporate meeting or jetting off to someplace, whatever. And sometimes I roll my eyes at myself when I hear myself say too busy, because everyone is busy, and I'm not any different than anyone else. And what am I trying to communicate by that? But anyway, one of the things that he said that we know that we're too busy is when there is a slippage of spiritual disciplines. And I wanted to read this. He said, if you're anything like me, when you get over busy, the things that are truly life-giving for your soul are the first to go rather than your first go-to, which I thought was very insightful. But then he goes on to say, such as quiet time in the morning, scripture, prayer, worship on Sunday, a meal with your community, and so on. Because in an ironic catch-22, the things that make for rest actually take a bit of emotional energy and self-discipline. When we get over busy, we get overtired. And when we get overtired, we don't have the energy or discipline to do what we need most for our souls. And then it's on repeat, repeat, repeat. The cycle begins to feed off its own energy. So instead of life for God, we start just, we're so, he goes on to say, you start vegging out and all you want to do is binge Netflix and do nothing. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction from doing all the things to doing none of the things. And what the point he's making here is doing all of the good things that we need to be in scripture. When you don't have enough time to be a little bit in the word every day, you're too busy. And so that was just something that really resonated with me to see that sometimes that, because you can let it go because it's something that you do on your own, maybe, then that's not going to help you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But we do let it go because we can let it go. And other things are yelling at us and demanding our time. So where's the wisdom in deciding how to back away from those things that are yelling at us?
Yeah, and the idea of hurry, too. You said that's part of the title, right?
The ruthless elimination of hurry.
Yeah, that's very intriguing to me because I feel like that's exactly the culture in which we live. Everything is in a hurry.
Yeah, that's what
Everything's
he says.
Quick and convenient and in a hurry, and our schedules are that way. Our lives are that way, and almost, sort of like what you were saying. The busier we are, the more in a hurry we are. Obviously, that means the more important we are. Then
or so we think.
Yeah, or so we think. And so if somebody comes up to you and says, "What'd you do this week?" You don't want to go, "Nothing."
You should try it sometime and see what somebody does.
What'd you do today? Nothing. So how do we find the balance in all of that? And again, I think we start with a whole little introspection, a little humility, and looking into our own lives. And for me personally, I can always tell when it's not that I don't need to be busy. I just need to be busy doing the right things, and like you were saying, maybe sometimes that's a discipline of spending more quiet time with God or family or whatever that might look like. But if I start feeling resentful toward the people in my life who need me, maybe I'm too busy. because I feel pulled in all these different directions. I was thinking about requests from fellow Christians. That's our family. Mm-hmm. And we've mentioned before on this podcast all those one another passages. Are we making time to fulfill those passages? And then when they do open up and they do come to us and maybe they just want to hang out. Maybe they want to talk over a cup of coffee. Maybe they want you to come help them with something. Maybe they want you to help start an act of service with them. And then we have this big sigh well up in our chest, like, that's just one more thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously we're going to have moments like that in busier seasons, but if that gets to the point where it characterizes our life and we're always feeling that way, maybe we need some reflection and prayer and more disciplined use of our time and the choices that we're making.
How do we back away from some things that we think are necessary, that aren't really necessary? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, unless it's sitting down and making a list of, and this is probably where I need to be better about keeping a calendar. I know you do this, keep a calendar well, but looking at what's on the calendar and seeing what is there on there that I can eliminate or condense or combine into something else that would, if you have 3 Bible studies going on, is there a way you can combine them into one and have a ladies class? Or I don't know. Just throwing that question out there.
Well, I don't really have the answer for that.
You're supposed to.
I am a planner and a calendar person, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially as I gained a few more years on my age. You start thinking about that. My life is half over. What am I doing? But for me, I kind of had to narrow down. Like, it's so easy to be overwhelmed when you think of all the opportunities in the big picture. But narrow, further down, further, and then start there. Mm-hmm. So I need to narrow it all the way down to myself. What does my relationship with God look like? What does my walk with God look like? What does my time with Him look like in my day-to-day? Is it lacking? I mean, if it is, that's where I start, period. Mm-hmm. I can't keep using everything else and all these other commitments and obligations or interests of mine as an excuse keeping me from that most essential thing. Mm-hmm. And then the next circle out would be the people that I have intimate relationship with, my husband, my children, if I have them. I'm speaking about all of us. Mm-hmm. What does my relationship with my husband look like? Am I neglecting it? Am I too busy? Am I not being intimate? Am I not having conversation? Am I not serving him, spending time with him? Because I'm too busy, I'm distracted, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, whatever it might be. And again, we know this looks different for different people in different phases. Moms with young children are always going to struggle with that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But, I think about now, I have children that are grown. I want to look at my relationship with them and my grandchildren. I just kind of have to bring in the focus and start there. Mm-hmm. My relationship with God, then my relationship with the people that He's put in my life that I'm responsible for, then my relationship with my church family, my relationship with my community and my neighbor. That's where I need to start. And if I have overextended myself to the point that those relationships, which are the ones that I have the most impact on, that make lasting difference, if I'm living right, those are the people that God's put in my life. If I'm neglecting those relationships, things have to change. Mm-hmm. They have to. And then once I get all that straightened out, then look into, here's all these extra things, extra opportunities, extra things on the peripheral as the circle gets broader and broader and broader. You think about all the opportunities online and with social media. And now that I've said that word, let me just caution all of us not to let our lives and choices that we make be influenced by social media. Mm. How much time are we spending there that's influencing what we think we should be doing in my life, in my career, in my home, in my relationship, whatever it might be. Make sure those choices are being honed by spending time in the Word and letting God form our hearts and our choices instead of what we think it's supposed to look like based on everything we're filling our hearts with on all these images. Just a little side note there,
Yeah,
because it's so
absolutely.
easy to do that. It's so easy to do that, and I fall prey to that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're better at that than I am, because another thing that he talked about in the book was how many times we touch our phone every day. And it was like 2,671 or something like that. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And oh man, and since I've read that, I've been thinking how I can't be quiet. It's like I can't sit still. I can't, even while I'm working on something else, I'm looking over here to see if John has texted me, or I'm looking over there to make sure that this is done. And it's like my brain is going in 17 different directions. And this is just a recent, in the history of the world, a very recent thing. And one of the things he said was, now we can't imagine living without something that didn't exist when my first child was born. And really much sooner than that, because I want to say the first iPhone came out in like 2007. And here we are 17 years later. And everywhere you go, walking down the street, people are looking at their hands and the phone that's in their hand. And I know I'm like that. I have things going on. I'm texting someone. I'm looking at social media. I'm looking at my online Bible. I'm doing whatever. I'm calling someone. And I know that there's no going back. So I feel like we can't really, I'm not going to be one of those people that says, throw away the phone, go back to the old ways. It's Pandora's box is opened, and we're not going back. So what do we do with it now? Yeah. What do we do with it now? How do we make it work for us instead of us working for it? And being more conscious of it, I think, is the very first step, is shaking myself and say, come on, put that down. And that's part of that day of rest that especially this younger generation is talking about doing, is you put your phone away for that entire day. It's literally not in the same room with you. And I kind of twitch when I think about that. So I think, what if my kids need me? What if? And I feel like, if something really drastic happened, someone would come find me. If my kids, and again, I don't know, this is a pretty drastic thing, but if something was wrong with some of my kids, they would contact someone that knows where I am. I don't like that, because I want to be available to the people that I love. So that's probably something that needs to be perfected. But being aware of how distracted we are by hurry and by things, and I think that's just such wise advice to narrow it down. John sometimes says, peel back the layers of the onion, and you solve one problem at a time. Is kind of where he's going. But I think if we peel back the layers of the onion, we see what's most important and what should be most important. Like you said, our relationship with God and those we love and our church family, and maybe sitting down with a calendar with that in view. And I think if we have to cancel some things or readjust, realign our priorities, people that know and understand us and love us are going to be okay with that.
It kind of makes me think about, with giving, we think about the offering that we bring to the Lord every week financially. You start there. And then you use the rest of it for everything else in your budget. It's not like you take care of everything else first and then whatever's left you give to God. You start with what you're going to give to God, because it always works out. You'll squeak in everything else as you need to. And if you don't, it'll be there next month, Excuse me. But it kind of makes me wonder if it's not the same way with our time. Start there with what's most important when you're looking at your day or your week, and where you need to put your priority and your emphasis, and make sure those are receiving your time and attention. Like you're talking about the phone, it's all about intention and boundaries. And make sure, excuse me, did pretty good throughout this episode until just now. Make sure that the people in front of you, your quiet time with God, those things are met first, even though there's all this, almost urgent stuff screaming at you all around, hit those things first, and all that stuff will eventually squeak its way in where it needs to. But at least looking back, you'll know, I was there where I needed to be. And if I'm, for myself, if I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, I know I need to get with so and so, or we need to have somebody over, or we need to blah blah blah, and we keep saying we're going to do it and we never schedule it in because looking at this week there's something going on every night. Well, when I look back, what will have made the most impact? It would have been those face-to-face interactions with the people around me. And if I don't have time for that, I've just got to make some adjustments and put those types of things in first that have the most meaning, and that when looking back at the end of my life won't fill me with regret if they're neglected.
How do well, okay, two things. First is quiet time with God, like you kind of brought up at the beginning of the episode. That's going to look different depending on your stage in life. And so it's important not to compare with someone else, because I think about my daughters-in-law with their little children, and is there such a thing as quiet time with God with kids running around everywhere? And I admire them for putting it in, but it's going to look different than mine, and that's okay. I've been there where they are, and I struggled with that, and I wish, looking back, I wish I would have been more intentional about my own spiritual growth. But God is gracious and will give you time. So give ourselves some grace at different parts of our lives when it's going to look different. And maybe our quiet time with God is going into the bathroom, closing the door, and having a prayer and asking God for patience to finish out the day. Or, it may be little short snippets here and there, but I feel like making the time at some point during the day, and your children will see this is important to mom and dad. And I think that's important. And now I can't remember what the other thing was. I think I was going to say something about when you do determine what it is that's important, to be how to say to someone, this is what I'm going to do today, and I've had to make this decision because I was feeling overwhelmed, and I'm sorry that I'm going to have to cancel this lunch date, or I can't come to ladies' night out. And it just changes over time. It used to be all about ladies' night out when the boys were little, because I needed to get out of the house. And now when I think about getting out in the evening, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I think that if we handle it right, we can still say, I'm sorry, this is on me. But for my emotional health, I need to stay home tonight.
Yeah. And I'm really hoping this isn't coming across as some big guilt trip for all of us, because I know we already all feel that kind of tension of making the best choices and, how we should be spending our time. We already feel that.
Yeah.
So I really hope it's not coming across kind of like this, well, you're botching it.
Oh, I hope we never do that. We never intend to do that.
We could, but I do think it's important just to kind of remind ourselves, just look at the big picture. And sometimes it's just a matter of simplifying, keep the main thing, as they say. And, maybe right now that does look like taking care of your family. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you may be longing for different things or trying to fit it all in anyway. And, prayerfully you'll make it through. Everything that we're doing is probably really good. It's not that you're doing things wrong. It's not that we're not walking in the light. And really, it's just a matter of just reminding ourselves sometimes to give some thought and intention to how we are unfolding our days, and making sure that we're not overextending, overwhelming, overcommitting to the point that the main thing is being neglected. And because we'll hurt ourselves spiritually, and we'll hurt the people that are counting on us ultimately. I think God gives us strength for what we need to accomplish for him each day. Don't necessarily think he intended for us to be run ragged.
Yeah.
In pursuit of some things.
Well, and it's okay to rest.
Yeah.
And this is something that I wrote down because I need it. And I know my husband needs it, but I need that mental rest. I need emotional rest. I need all kinds of different rest. You physical rest, probably need to do a little more exercise and I need a rest. But so is it okay to rest? I was thinking we're writing through Genesis and God rested on the seventh day. And so I struggle with that a little bit because God doesn't need rest. He's God. And what does that exactly mean? It means that he ceased from his activity, but yet he encouraged the Israelites to have that. There was a rhythm of work and then a day of rest. And when in Israel on the Sabbath, I know you've seen this on Friday morning, there's a flurry of activity at the grocery stores and in the markets, and there's all of these women going to get what they need for the next 36 hours for the rest of Friday and all of Saturday. And honestly, I feel bad about this, but I kind of dreaded the Sabbath. I dreaded Saturdays in Israel when we were there those summers, because it meant that we weren't going to be able to do some of the things that I wanted us to be able to do. The stores would be closed, or we couldn't do this, or we couldn't go there. And I thought, what a shame that I'm so, I expect everything to be open and ready and, everyone to be going all day. But you could feel it there. You could feel that as the sun begins to set on Friday evening, the streets start emptying out. There's no traffic. You see people maybe walking to synagogue. And then all day Saturday, it's quiet, except maybe you hear children laughing and playing. And so that rest, that was instituted by God many years ago. And like I said, New Testament Christians are not expected to rest like that, have that day of rest, but it's still a good thing.
Yeah, it probably looks a little different for different people. People that, like I said, are wired differently. A day of rest for them might be like you like to go outside and work outdoors, using your axe.
Hatchet.
And that's physical labor, but it probably also feels a little restful for you.
It is.
It's you can just think, you're out there with nature, and that's a period of tranquility for you. So rest probably looks different for different people. And we know our, as you say, our bodies need it, our minds need it, our relationships need it. For me, the question is, obviously, I want to be a good example of using my life for God and his glory. And I want my children to see me serving him, but never to the extent that, my now grown children feel like they can't come to me for anything, or that I won't be able to fit them in some way, or because I'm too busy. To me, that's and that's why I wanted to call it finding balance, because we are trying to do good things, but being careful that they're covering the things that are most important, if that makes sense. That's why I wanted to call it kind of finding balance. And that's the prayer that we have.
Yeah. And that has been exactly that issue has been something that we've had to talk about with our kids recently because of our lifestyle. And we've kind of had to come to a realization that we have been those people that were not available for those that we love the most. And, we had that issue, not issue, but that episode, I'm Over It. And we talked about being overwhelmed. And it's a hard, it's sad to me that we've gotten to that point, and we're going to have to figure out and make some changes and do some things differently. So this has come at a good time to be thinking about finding balance, because it's not easy.
Well, I'm kind of watching the time here. Do you have something else you want to add before we get into our something good for you?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I think it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, I don't know that we solved
actually
anything.
Answered any questions.
Maybe we can have some discussion in the group next week. Yeah. How do you find balance?
No, but I think we could just kind of summarize it by saying it's just something we need to be mindful of and take control of as much as we can, with God's help, because it is so easy to get pulled here and there and get distracted and overcommit. And it's just a good thing every now and then to step back and make sure that the main thing is being kept the main thing.
Yeah.
And
it's something we didn't mention, but to me, between the two of us, it's just always a given. But pray about it and confess to God that you're struggling with this, and He knows already. But talk to God about it and ask Him to make it clear and to help us find balance and to ease our minds when we feel like we're maybe not doing the right thing or enough of the right thing or too much of the right thing. But we just always need to pray about things.
And in case it was confusing in any way, we're not saying take time to step back from serving.
No.
You know, we serve, we love, and we serve, and it's a blessing and an honor to do that. Just to make sure that you're serving in the ways that you need to be serving, if that makes sense. That the areas where God has put you that are the most important is receiving that attention first. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
Are you worried that we didn't?
I just don't want to. I feel like we could have been a little confusing. Probably because in my mind I feel like I'm going back and forth. But we're not talking about stepping away from service. We're just talking about how are you spending your time, and is it in the better areas of service where God has you?
So I can't spend the next week playing Candy Crush all day long.
How about an afternoon?
That's what I do when I get up in the morning for a few minutes. That's when John is asking me all kinds of questions while he's working on his computer, as soon as his eyes pop open. And I'm like, I'm playing Candy Crush. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Neil's like he's figured that part out when drinking that first cup of coffee or two, no questions.
We do not speak right now.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm not irritable or grouchy about it. I'm just more quiet. Unless he starts asking me questions, and then I might get grouchy.
Yeah, I know I do.
All right. But that's a different topic. All right. So what's your something good for you?
It's a thing, and it's a thing of vanity, but I like it. And it's one that I've looked for one of these and never liked them before, but it's a hair dryer.
Oh, okay.
And
is it round?
Yes, it's a brush.
A round brush dryer?
Yeah, apparently I need to clean it out too. But I've tried. I don't want to hold it right here on the side. Sorry. You love hair. You want to see it closer?
Greg.
But it's one of those, it blows air and while you dry your hair. And I've needed something like this to work because, I've told you before, it's curly in the back, straight in the front. So I need to dry it, not just with a regular blow dryer because it blows it everywhere. But I've never found one that works like this. This has more of the stiff bristles. Sometimes they have those wiry bristles, and that just makes my hair frizzy. But I just found this, and it had lots of, it's the number one. It's actually the number one brush blow dryer on Amazon, and it's cheap. It's a Revlon, and I'll share a link of it next week. But it just really works well for me. And I've always wanted to use one of these because I thought it would work, suit my purposes, but never found one that works this well. So
I always felt like my hair would get caught in it or tangled in it or something.
Well, you know how when you get a blowout at the hair salon and they are using the brush, they move it constantly. And that's what I do with this. I'm just brushing and moving it, and watch me get my brush stuck in my hair. But you just, twist it while you're drying.
If you do, that'll be the shot I freeze for the
great
thumbnail.
You would. Yeah. Okay. So that's my vein, something good for you this week. And I'll post a link next week.
All right. So mine is a grocery item.
Okay.
And we went to Hiram and Brittany Kemp's house, and somebody brought, I don't even know who it was. Somebody brought a jar of salsa. And it was so good. It tasted like it was freshly made. Now, there aren't very many jarred salsas that I like. They'll do in a pinch, but I'm not that crazy about them. This one tasted like it had literally just been chopped up and put in a bowl, and I could not get enough of it. And I started talking about it and like, what is this salsa? And it's called cilantro salsa. It's a Sam's product by Members Mark. And so it just says Members Mark cilantro salsa.
So it's their brand, store brand.
Yeah, but apparently the cilantro is the key and I don't know how they get that jarred in there and still fresh like that. But I'm telling you, it's like you're eating a bowl of freshly chopped tomatoes, onions, cilantro, lime. I mean, it is so good.
Is it more chunky or tomatoey sauce, like sauce?
More like I would say it's probably more chunky. I mean, not big chunks, but like freshly diced tomatoes. Okay. You know, not like a smooth sauce like the Pioneer Woman's salsa recipe is more like a smooth sauce. But I'm telling you, I was like, why ever make salsa again? This stuff is amazing. Yeah. I put it on my shopping list and
I'm gonna have to go try that.
Yeah, it's very good.
I did notice that they had that Safe Catch tuna that you recommended. They had that back in stock here in Denver.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's good. Good. Very good.
All right. Well, great conversation. And you've already hinted to me what we'll be talking about next week, and I'm already looking forward to it. So it's going to be a great conversation. And thanks, ladies, for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on finding balance, maybe some struggles you have in keeping the main thing. Or if we were way off base, you can tell us that too. We always appreciate feedback.
We may or may not agree.
Right. You'll never know. No. Until next time.
Keep looking up.
Love you.
Love you too.